Here we are learning how to be podcasters.
All right, let's try that again.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, welcome.
So we're really excited to be starting our first episode of Through This Life.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
And, I know we have a lot of really fun topics that we're eager to talk about. And I think we were actually kind of surprised what the first topic that y'all picked for us was. Because, we have a lot of good ones. We have a lot that probably we expected to be talking about before this one.
Yeah, like we thought you guys would want to hear about the cancer journey or like being friends with your ex or relationship stuff. And we're like, wow. Like,
which, by the way, all of those are,
they were
we're
high
up there.
Yeah.
All of those were up there.
Especially
and we're going to be doing one of those, I think, is our next episode. We'll tell you which one at the end of this one.
Yeah.
But the one that y'all wanted to hear first was actually about multicultural relationships.
Yeah.
Something like multicultural relationships, I'm sure a lot of our listeners are either in a multicultural relationship, thinking about being in a multicultural relationship, they have been in one, or they know somebody who
or they're just curious maybe too.
Yeah. So I guess it makes sense.
And it is a topic we love talking about. Yeah. You'll hear it even in other podcasts, but today we're just going to be more detailed about it.
Well, to get the ball rolling really quick, I'll tell you that one of the reasons you will hear about it later in pretty much every topic that we talk about, it affects literally everything.
Everything we do. Everything we say, all of it.
On the one hand, we're very big believers in the whole, it doesn't matter.
Where you're from, where you come from,
where you're from,
your beliefs,
your culture, your beliefs matter a lot.
Yeah, they do.
Culture, it's not, as much as we believe that, it's, it's like, we're all people, it doesn't really matter, but at the same time, it still affects you. Yeah. Because
it's different.
Yeah. We have different ways of thinking about things because of where we've come from.
Yeah. You're not the same. So, and just wanted to let you guys know, too, the way we picked this topic, or the way you guys picked this topic, was through my Instagram. At the time, we didn't really have a Through This Live Instagram account. So that's how we did it. So most of the people that picked this are my friends. So that's another thing, too, to put out there. But now we do have an Instagram for Through This Life. So if you want to be part of future topics that we're picking or anything else that we're doing with Through Its Life, just go there and follow us there. Yeah.
And our Instagram is @ThroughThisLife.
Just like that.
Just like that. No caps, no spaces.
Yeah.
Through This Life.
So, all right, let's get right to the topic.
Through This Life.
With Nathan and Yearling. Actually, this is going to help people get to know us a lot better.
Yeah.
So it's a good video.
Yeah. Because we're going to get to talk about... we're going to be talking about who we are, how we are, and especially, how we came to be that way because of, where we come from. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. I actually never thought or wanted to be with a white guy. That was a huge no-no for me. And he knows that, so not completely new to him. And the reason for me is because, I'm from Peru. A little background of my side. I speak Spanish. It's in South America. And so, at least in my, in the way that I saw this, what do you say? In the way that I viewed this, because I don't want it to sound like all Hispanics or all Peruvians are this way, but where I lived, or where I came from, and what I saw and experienced is that whenever there was a person from the U.S., especially if they were white, they were treated like they were kings or queens, and they had, they would take them to so many expensive hospitals. Not hospitals. See, all I think of is hospitals. We want
to give you the grand tour of our country. Come see all our fabulous hospitals.
Oh, mercy. No, like restaurants, right? And all that. And so in my head, I'd be like, why do they get a better treatment where we have so many people here that, need all of it? Anyway, so that's where my bias towards not that I disliked white people in general. I have amazing white friends that I love them so much.
My best friends are white.
But the thing is, yeah, no, like in general, I thought like, no, maybe they're too high maintenance and too much for me. But anyway, so then also another thing that I grew up with was this mentality of like, better your race. There's a saying in Peru, but I'm realizing that it's also in other places, in other Latin places, that goes like this: mejora tu raza, which is to better your race. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, what in the world? And even when I was traveling here to the US, so many people were like, get a gringuito, which gringo is like a white guy. So, in which I think people in Mexico say güero. So, like, so even when I was here, I would hear like, yeah, cógete un güerito, and stuff like that. And I'd be like, wow. It was just so interesting to me. And some people would say, like, it'll be, your kids are going to turn out so beautiful. And everything geared towards them being lighter skin, lighter color of eyes and hair. And in my head, I was like, why does that matter? And then my parents, the way they grew me up is always to look at the person's personality. I remember when I was even younger, I would look at a little boy that everybody loved. I remember this little guy. He was nice looking guy, and all the girls, all my little friends, had crushes on him. But I didn't like his character. He would get mad really easily when he would play soccer and all that. So in my head, I would always be like, why are you liking so much? Why are you liking him so much when he is like this and like that? So in my head, it's always been character first before the looks. So yeah, and so that's a little bit of my background, and that's why for me it was like, no, like I wanted to be rebellious against that saying to better my race. I just wanted to be with somebody I loved, period, and it didn't matter who it was. How did you feel about that, Bebe, when I shared about that mentality of bettering my race, quote unquote?
I mean, it's honestly kind of offensive that, this attitude that, you have to marry somebody who's white to improve your race, to so that you're better yourself, better your kids, because
yeah,
it makes no sense. And it's really, it's like it degrades the person, it degrades other people. I'm so glad like that hearing her say, like, I didn't even want to be with a white person because this is the attitude that they have in my country. It's like, I'm really glad to know that you have that attitude rather than that you actually think like that, because that would be offensive to me. And it's like, am I just a stepping stone for you to, I can't imagine actually being in a situation like that. That would be terrible.
Right. And then for me, it was like, am I not good enough? Do I not look, is my color that bad that I have to look for something quote unquote better? It's sad. I hate that saying.
The other thing with specifically Peru, I mean it's everywhere in the Americas, but specifically Peru and South America in general. That's a remnant of colonialism. Sorry, I'm a big history nerd. So so you'll get a little bit of that, but in this case, it's like the idea that there's this hierarchy. It's deeply ingrained in their society in South America and many countries there. It's deeply similar to the way it is here in the U.S., but a little bit different. I mean, it's a little different everywhere, but because in days gone by, the Spanish colonizers, they were at the top of the society, and then the people at the bottom, and in the middle you had this group that was mixed, and they were regarded as better than the native population because they're part white.
Oh wow. So
it goes way back.
It is really sad. For me, that's why being with the white person, and also sadly, this is really sad, right? The last president that was in the U.S. kind of also changed my mind even more deeper into not wanting to be with the white guy because of my experiences. Because before that, I didn't really completely believe in racism, even though I was seeing it. I was still like, no, it's just more in the past, or maybe it was just in my country how I experienced it, because I'm native Peruvian. So when I went to the capital of Lima, I experienced some racism because I was a native Peruvian. I was darker skinned.
It's that legacy.
Exactly.
Colonialism.
Right. So then when I was here in the US and seeing all this happening with the political stuff, and then how people were coming out even more, and then I started to, which we will talk more about my experiences as an immigrant here, because I experienced some really difficult situations with like police and oh, you know, all that. Yeah. So anyways, we'll get to it. But because of those experiences too, I was like, oh man, you know, a lot of white people are really racist, and I'd rather not be treated like if I'm less off. And so that's another reason why. But I met a friend of mine that I was getting to know, and his family was amazing. His family was really welcoming and all of it, and I felt like I was at home. Even my brother, actually, thanks to that family that we love so much, like my brother and I both ended up being with white people, which we're really thankful for, you guys, you know. But and it's just so interesting because my brother also never wanted to be with a white girl either. So it's funny sometimes we look at each other. It's like, oh wow, we both end up being with white people. Like, but it's been a blessing, you know. It just depends on.
Yeah, and I wanted to add a little bit on that you were talking about kind of having an awakening to the reality that racism is still around.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest and in a fairly small Midwestern town where there's not a lot of diversity. I didn't know very many people who weren't white.
That's true.
And, you know.
Your church.
I think it's easy. Oh, yeah. Church, but I think it's easy for people who grew up like that to not even realize how much racism still exists.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're black, if you're Hispanic, and you live in the U.S., you understand what the reality is day to day. But somebody who's white, and here's something that I had to learn, because I was this person. That would really look at things and be like, wait, we're all equal under the law. We're all equal, you know. And, you know, what are you guys talking about systemic racism? I didn't understand it because I'd never seen it. Right? It wasn't my reality day to day. So it's, sorry.
I know that to you it was emotional that now you were seeing her with me, and you felt like you had to protect me. I remember.
Yeah, it was really strange for me starting out because it's like, wait, people treat you different. People like it just. It surprised me. It's like, how is this actually still a thing?
Yeah, I remember you were really shocked. And then you started to realize, and you started to be more like, you know, on top of it and making sure that we were fine.
Yeah, it's when you're with somebody who's not white. First of all, it teaches you because you're now close to somebody who's had experiences that you've never had, who has to worry about things that you've never even thought of. And it brings home the reality that my life is not the life that everybody has had. My, you know, what I think the way the world works, that's not necessarily how it works for everyone.
Yeah. Wow.
And my outlook just completely changed.
My baby.
So.
I remember for you were amazed. And for me, it was an eye-opening idea too, because before Nathan, I had courted a black guy, and for us it was different. It was a different reality because I felt like sometimes I had to step up for both of us. We were both people of color, but for whatever reason, because I was Hispanic, I was even treated a little bit different, and I hated that. But I always felt with him like that I had to kind of step up my game to protect us. But whereas with you, because you were white, I felt like I had to be behind you so you can protect me. And I've seen cases where him and I would go, and you and I would go to the same place, and I was treated differently because now I'm with you and not with him. Yeah. It's sad. It makes me upset. And also, like, there was times where I would go into a place and just, like, going there to buy stuff, and I would be treated a little bit just like, okay, hey, yeah, or like I didn't know English, you know. But then as soon as they would see me holding you, their whole welcoming experience was different. It's just messed up.
And something else that's interesting that I've noticed when I talk to people, especially like people that I know who are white. I know a lot of people who still live in that mentality that I grew up with, that racism is dead. Nobody believes that anymore, and our laws have changed and all of that. And it's like there's no, it's not there anymore. It's like they're more apt to listen to a white person who can say, "Look, I have this experience because my wife is Peruvian. I've seen this." And they're more receptive, even they're more receptive to hear it from a white person than they are to hear it directly from the people that actually have the experiences. Because I'm still just a witness. I'm just somebody who's very close to the person who's actually having the experience.
I was so bad because I would see Nathan doing stuff and I'd be like, "Oh my goodness, Nathan, you're so white." Remember, babe?
You still do that.
I still do. It's so bad. And like I said, like sadly, just like Hispanics have, bad stereotypes.
Yeah.
Same with every race, but people don't talk about the white people's stereotypes or cultures, and that's something that really gets to me, like legit, because even at my job they did a multicultural training so we can get to know people, but never once did they mention the white culture or white people, and that to me was hard to understand. Like I wish I could understand better, because we were talking about Hispanics, like black people, Indian people, and everything, and I'm like, okay, like, do you guys not think you're a culture? Like, I mean, I don't know, it just made it seem more like, oh, this is how we deal with you people of color. Like, or get to know these creatures that are not white. I didn't like it. And not that they had that attitude, but you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
It's like
I absolutely know what you mean. Like all the time. Like, growing up, we would always get like books that would talk about people from different cultures, and it's like, and it never fully occurred to me that it's like, man, we talk about other cultures more like they're a curiosity to learn about like something on Animal Planet than as if they're actual people.
But apart from all those very serious topics that we're really passionate about, there's also some interesting fun stuff that we had to learn about each other's cultures.
Yeah, the racial aspect is going to get a lot of attention, but that isn't necessarily our whole point in talking about this, because we also want to share the fun that we get to have about learning about different backgrounds and different ideas that just don't necessarily occur to you when you've never been exposed to them. So
that is very true. So one of them was I would store things in my oven.
I thought that was the strangest thing ever. And apparently, is that like normal in Peru?
Yeah,
a lot of people do it.
And the thing is, in my culture, so there's a country culture, but then there's also a family culture. So in my family culture, that is definitely normal. So I remember when we were gonna bake a cake or something, you opened the oven and you saw tons of stuff, and you were like, "Yeah, we're not doing that."
I mean, she literally had, I think, more things stored in the oven than she did in the cupboards next to the oven.
And we would use more like a toaster oven, which now I know the name thanks to you. I didn't know what it was.
My mom thought it was the strangest thing. We recently remodeled our kitchen. We don't actually have an oven anymore.
Yeah.
Because Yearling said, "Well, look, I'm just using it for storage anyway. I might as well just we should just put drawers there." And I resisted for a while.
You did.
But I finally gave in because she was very persistent. It was that point that it's like, you remember how I used the oven before. It's gonna be the same anyway. So let's just do this.
And it has worked out for us.
It works. The toaster oven works fine. It really does.
Do you love it now? Would you say you do?
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at that. He's been transformed. Oh, mercy.
You know, it is about the way that you cook at home, you know. Do you need an oven if really all you ever use it for is maybe, you know, make some baked potatoes or whatever? Most of our cooking is on the stovetop. We really that's what I was gonna say, need it.
Yeah, and I think that's another difference too, because you grew up a lot with microwave and ovens, so that was different for us too. Yeah, I remember when I didn't have a microwave, you kind of was like, we need one.
I thought it was the craziest thing. We do have a microwave now. Somebody
gave it to us.
We literally never use it for food.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll heat water in it, I think.
For treatments most of the time.
Most of the time,
Towels.
Like towels, or she has a couple of heating pads that are microwavable. We never cook food in the microwave.
Yeah, so, now you said you like heated food in the stovetop rather than heated food in the microwave. Didn't you say that?
I honestly have grown to kind of hate microwave food. It's terrible.
Aww.
If you really compare it, and I don't think even people that use a microwave regularly would ever say, yeah, I like the microwave food better. It's easier. But is it? You know?
Yeah.
We do enough of the other that it really, we don't care. You know?
Yeah. So then, what are other things you can think of that we had to deal with that was different?
Well, definitely the language barrier.
Yeah. Okay. So Nathan is literally just my translator sometimes, and then many times the thing is, I remember you told me that you thought I spoke really good English, right?
She's fluent. Really she is.
Aww.
So she does. She speaks pretty much perfect English. She speaks better English than many people I know who have lived here their whole lives. So,
really interesting.
Oh yeah, I'm a nerd. That's
okay. That's the other thing too. Like, he loves grammar.
I don't love grammar.
But
it just ticks me off to hear bad grammar.
And so that was like everything had to be written right or said right, or you know. And I mean, overall, would you say I say right things right?
Oh, most of the time, yes. And honestly, when we're talking, it doesn't make much difference unless it's just like the rare circumstance where I can't quite figure out exactly what you mean.
Oh yeah, when I'm trying to explain some complicated stuff and I'm like just like this and this and this and you're like, huh? Yeah. Let me take some time.
I didn't even know the name for this until recently, but apparently it's called high context versus low context.
What is that? I don't even know.
Oh yeah.
And then this happens a lot. Like he'll say words or things that I'm like, huh? And then he gets shocked because he thought my English was better. And I'm like, dude, like English is my second language. So there's things I still don't know. But yeah, what is that?
So basically, countries like the United States and the West, Western Europe, they're called low context cultures. So basically, what you say is most important. So, facial expressions, vocalization, nonverbal cues are not, they're still important, but they're not as important. And written communication is often preferred because it's more direct. People tend to want extreme detail, all that stuff,
Oh, yeah.
You have to say explicitly what you mean and make sure you get all the details to make sure that it cannot be misunderstood.
And that was hard for me with Nathan. There's times that I thought he was too cold. Or just, and I'd be like, you have to say it this way. Because in my culture, we have to, like, sugarcoat everything. And it has to be just a certain way.
And that's what's called more high context, where what you say, is important, but it only constitutes part of the meaning. Like, you communicate sometimes as much, if not more, meaning through how it's said than you do through what you're actually saying.
Yes!
Wow. And that's just something that Americans in general struggle with, and my family in particular.
It was, that was really hard. Because I'm used to being, and the thing is, for you though, Nathan, you like romantic movie, you know what I mean? Like, No, like not really. You don't like romantic, but like you like that romance, like the old lifestyle romance. Romance, is that
Romance,
how you romance? Yeah. You see it, it's coming out. But so you liked that though, and so I could see it when we were getting to know each other, how you were you're more affectionate than I am. People wouldn't think that. People would look at us, and because I'm Hispanic, they'd be like, oh, I'm all, like lovey-lovey, which I can seem that way.
She can act that way.
I can act that way. Yeah. But I mean, legit, that's also who I am, but at the same time, because of I think also traumas and because of the mentality from my culture that it's like, we have to be hard to get. Like, just, like it's kind of silly, but I don't know. Like Nathan, he showed us so much affection towards me, and just the way he would express himself was just like poetic and just like wow. Sometimes I would feel like I was in a movie because he was just like this. Yeah, it's amazing. But so that was interesting to me, and that's why I thought like, wow, he's not the typical like white person that is like super bold, non-affectionate, and all of that. I remember even my friends told me, how do you deal with a person that's non-affectionate? And I was like, it's interesting. He's a lot more affectionate than I am. I constantly had to say, ya pues.
To which I usually say, ya pues, ya pues.
Yeah. Like whenever he comes and gives me a hug and a kiss, I'm like, ya pues. Which kind of just means like, okay, like that's it. Like that's enough. But yeah, no, but I do see what you're saying in other families and yeah, you're just different, which I love.
And being with you and getting more used to that, and paying attention to how things are said, it can be very abrupt when I'm then hanging out with my white friends and it's like, oh wow, these people are really bold and they're saying stuff that it's like, man, this would be borderline offensive.
Wow, and you're realizing that
and
now.
It's like, man, this is how I used to be. And on the other hand, it's like, well, it's still not that bad. It's like, this is how, this is what I'm used to. And it's like, I know they don't mean it that way, and going into the more, getting into, once you get into the more mode of, okay, I'm in a low context environment here, and just paying less attention to how it's said and more attention to just what's being said. And it's like, oh, that makes, it makes sense why they're saying it that way when you understand that, that what's being said is the more important thing.
And what was really interesting is even at your church, I remember when I went to visit your church, I was like, oh, baby, they're like way too bold. And it sounded so rude. I didn't even know what to say because they were going to come and attack me.
Yeah.
And then you kept saying like, I just think it's all in your mind.
Yeah.
That's how it should be, baby. We have to say what it is.
Yeah, but what we're starting to realize is it's like, it's a different way of communicating from, as I get more used to communicating with high context culture, it's like I start to see why that style of communication would appear rude to outsiders. At the same time, because I come from it, I can also see why it is very acceptable to people who are in it.
Yeah, and for me, that has helped me be bolder as well. And I think that's been amazing about our relationship because bringing two cultures together, and what I love about you and I too is that we're not like, okay, no, this is my culture and it has to be just this way, but we're both ready to become or make our own culture.
Oh, that's the most fun.
Beautiful.
I mean, it's really awesome, picking, okay, what are we going to take from this side? What are we going to take from this side? And how are we going to combine it? And what are we going to do that's just completely different and completely new and made up? And it's like, traditions and unique spins on those traditions. Like we still haven't totally figured out Christmas yet.
Yeah, that too. Just a lot of that stuff has been kind of fun to hear each other out and be like, okay, we'll take that from there and this and that. It's been awesome.
Yeah. It really has. I mean, and I've always loved that's part of my culture as well. We're very traditionally minded. And I honestly kind of expected, because that's one of the things that you hear about Hispanic culture a lot. It's like it's very rooted in tradition. And I was kind of surprised that that's not always the case.
My family is definitely not like that. We are more like, let's do something different, something unusual, something that we can add our own little spice to, because my family just goes everywhere, and I love it that way. So that was different for you.
Very. But I like it, and again, it's like it's not that it's anti-tradition. It's like it's pro make your own traditions.
Yeah, and that's why we even picked our names differently too. Nathan took my last name, and I took his.
Yeah, I mean, part of that as well was because I just felt so accepted by her family, and I wanted to, I wanted to kind of announce to the world, and I wanted to like be part of her family the same way that she was becoming part of mine.
Oh, baby. It made me really happy when he said that. My whole family didn't... Well, they liked the thought behind it, but they were like, that's going to be too long, because usually Hispanic people struggle with long names. I used to always say, this is my long name. Okay, hear it. Listen up, people. It's Yerlin Camila Quispequea Wancachaglia. So... And I would always tell my friends that were getting to know me, and they're like, oh, so you're Hispanic, and and then when people are trying to make conversations, that's what they're trying to figure out, my culture. So just to kind of add a little bit more to it, I'll be like, you want to know my full name? So yeah. So then that's why my family was like, okay, no, you struggle too much having such a long name, so just have one. But to us, it meant a lot. And I never wanted to actually take any guy's name. That was not
the fact that it was like hardly even like, we barely even had to talk about it. I was just like, so when we get married, you're gonna take my name, right? And I think we didn't even come up with the thing right away where we were gonna combine them. But we talked about it, like, I asked her at some point, would she want to take my name? And she was just like, yeah, I never really, pictured myself doing that. But with you, I really want to, Yeah. It was the neatest thing.
Oh, babe. Yeah, I like your name. And...
it made me feel very special.
Oh, baby. Something that was really interesting, too, that we realized is how much I save and you use. I came up so wrong. But true though, like for me, I automatically can't use a whole napkin if it's just for a little bit.
I've seen her fold a napkin in half and tear it in half to use half of it, and it's like...
Yeah, or even quarter in 4 pieces, because for me, I've always been told it's expensive. Like, paper towels are expensive, especially those. Napkins, okay, yeah, you can use a little more, but still, like, use what you need. And sometimes when I would see Nathan, like, just stick a whole bunch, like 2 or 3 at a time for one tiny little cleanup, it was so painful.
I mean, in my house, we were mad about when they, I don't know how many of you guys remember this, when paper towels used to be bigger and then they made them half size. We were mad about that. And we're like, okay, so one of the new pieces, 2 of the new pieces is 1 paper towel.
Oh, man. And in my house, we were so happy about that because they caught it for us. So it was just those differences that our first was really hard. And still sometimes is. And I know I still get on you for that.
Oh, man, I remember at times, like, my mom would get on me because she would, like, can you bring me a paper towel? And I would bring her 1 paper towel. And she's like, no, 1 paper towel is 2 of these.
Oh, wow. And then when I went to visit them, I saw like a whole pile full of paper stuff, like paper toilet, tissues, and all of that. And if you had a tissue in my home, it was like, wow. Like that box needed to last you for a whole year or 2.
We go through 3 of them during the average cold.
Yeah. Man, it's intense. Like, I would see, I had my little tissue box that I had for years. I think actually 3 years. It was just there. And the reason why, it's not like I don't wipe my nose. I do wipe my nose, guys. But
which we're all very happy about.
Right. But I don't know, this may be weird for y'all too. We use toilet paper mostly for wiping our nose. To us, it's cheaper. I don't know if that's actually legitly true, but we think it's cheaper, and there's a lot more of it.
It definitely feels cheaper.
So it makes us feel less guilty. So that's why for me it was like, I usually would use toilet paper, but to see Nathan just grab one and after another and one after another, I'd be like, it would kill me because he would. And then I remember the first empty box that you hanged it to me, and I was like, my tissue is dead. So that is so hard. But thankfully, we don't need more tissues because we are allergy free. We're going to tell you more about how we're allergy free.
Well, I'll tell you what, one part of getting allergy free was not using Kleenex anymore.
That is true.
Because I'd always complained about this my whole life, about how they put the dust on them, and so you need like 3 more for every one you use because the dust makes you sneeze. Toilet paper doesn't do that.
Hey.
So,
toilet paper.
Sometimes.
One thing I love about Nathan is his interest in learning Spanish. That was huge. Yeah. Because, my grandma and some of my uncles and aunts, they don't know any English. But Nathan, he is able to communicate with them somewhat because he learned Spanish. Somewhat. I said somewhat.
Yeah, that's a very important qualification there because,
no,
3 semesters of Spanish does not make you fluent.
No, but baby, I've seen so many people that took a lot of semesters of Spanish and still wouldn't be able to do it. I just admire how much you've been able to take in from the classes that you can actually...
high school Spanish doesn't even count.
Yeah.
And college Spanish might teach you enough to barely get by if you're a tourist trying to survive in a Spanish speaking country.
He's putting himself really low. I'm really proud of him.
Me gusta hablar español.
Look at him. And that really helped my family to accept him a lot more too. Mm-hmm. Especially for my grandma, my uncles and aunts. It's just been a blessing. It's
opened doors that we would just, it wouldn't be nearly as I don't want to say easy because even then, I'm still learning, so it's still not easy necessarily, but just the fact that I can even say a few words and have a short conversation with them, they appreciate it so much.
They do.
And it's like we now have a connection that we couldn't have nearly as easily if I had to go through her to translate everything.
At home, sometimes there's words that we only say in Spanish, and now like ven aquí or mira. And stuff like that. Even with our little ones too, we would say some little Spanish words that we only say it in Spanish.
I remember one time they were talking about something and they said it. They were speaking Spanish and they didn't realize that I understood. And all of a sudden, I responded in Spanish. Yeah. No, I laughed because what they said was funny, and that was when they realized that I actually understood. It was hilarious.
It was hilarious. So there's moments like that he would just surprise us, and we're like, "Wow, you understand what we're saying." So
I understand more than I speak. I think that's probably normal.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That's what it was for me in English too. So that's been something. What else? So my parents, the way they reacted to us being together was not as tough as I thought. It was actually fairly easy, and like I said,
wasn't I like the first guy that they ever approved of?
Yeah, my parents are really hard to find, which
we appreciate because they care so much.
Yeah, but I mean, there was points that I thought I would never marry anybody. And I was crying when I was, like 3 years ago or so. I was like, oh, they're not gonna love anybody in my life. And then I thought, I don't know. It was interesting. That in itself, I think, is gonna be another podcast. more about how that happened too. But
yeah.
Yeah,
we'll
no.
probably have another podcast about my parents because it was very interesting.
Yeah, for your parents, I know that cultural aspect did a lot.
Cultural aspect was a big thing. My mom was very concerned about like papers and whether she was interested.
Yes, that's
and it's
something.
like, first of all, one of the things that again, growing up in the culture that I did, that is something that people think about, is that people try and get away with being here when they, quote unquote, shouldn't be here. By marrying a citizen, and it's like,
that was really offensive for me.
I mean, first of all, it's crazy because really, in the cases where that happens, the person who's doing it, is taking a much bigger risk than is much more likely to get hurt than the citizen.
And by the time I already had my green card, so we told them that, but they thought I was, I needed a person to be a citizen. So like they were crazy about me becoming a citizen, wanting to become a citizen after we told them that we were.
The funny thing is, I care more about her becoming a citizen than she does.
Yeah, that is true. I don't want to be a citizen, but I mean, now I do because you convinced me to it after we were stuck in Peru for 3 months, which is another story. But
that's a fantastic
pandemic story. But yeah, and then that's when I realized, whoa, if I was a citizen, we could have taken an early flight together. I realized that there could be benefits for our family in the future if something does happen. Yeah, but I know that it was tough, and I understand. I mean, overall, I get it, and but to me, it just became really hurtful, and I think, first of all, like,
because they wouldn't let it go.
And that was really tough at first. And also, I think it's complicated and it's hard to totally just fake your love. Like if I was legit with you for my papers and I was faking my love just to be with you for the papers, but I'm not telling you, I can't do that.
I don't think very many people could do that at all, and I don't think it's normal even to try. I think more often, when things like that do happen, it's a known arrangement that they've made beforehand.
You both know what the plan is. I wouldn't.
And again, the person who wants to stay in America who's not a citizen is taking a much bigger risk and is more likely to get hurt than the citizen, because they're the one that is under threat here. If the citizen, decides that it's not working, that they're not happy, they can start divorce proceedings, or they can notify the authorities or whatever. They have all of the power in that situation.
Exactly.
The idea that non-citizens are going to, have any power in a situation like that and are going to be able to manipulate and use people to their advantage that way. It's not going to happen. More likely, you're going to have somebody who offers to marry a non-citizen to allow them to stay in the country, and then basically treats them like a slave. Because if they speak up, they're they'll get deported because in big trouble for getting into a false marriage.
It's tough cases, man. Tough cases. So but for us, I mean, that was one thing that we had to kind of go through with Nathan's family. The other thing was a lot of things that your family saw me, it's like the way they looked at me because I was Hispanic. So one of the things was they thought I wouldn't speak much because they had experience. I don't know. I think they had experience with somebody, right? Your ex.
My ex was also Hispanic. She was from Mexico, and I'm not entirely sure that she wasn't the only Hispanic person my mother had ever met.
I don't know.
Yeah, but she was a very quiet person, not at all like you.
Am I loud?
I didn't say that.
And the thing is, when when your mom said all that, and you were like, my mom is really worried that you'll be quiet because you're Hispanic. I'm like, well, usually the typical
the stereotype that Hispanics are really loud
and drama queens. So I'm like, well, that goes against that, but like overall I like talking. I'm not loud, but I do enjoy talking. And right, babe?
Oh yeah, she loves to talk. We have fun.
So I would tell, and then I think your mom got to know that because By the way, like, this is how it started, but now his mom, we're better, right? I love his mom in ways that she cares for us.
Yeah, my parents, they can be difficult to get to know, I think. And I think that's a cultural thing as well.
I'm realizing
more
that.
Reserved, more hesitant to, more distrusting.
And that was weird for me. But before we get to that, because that's a good topic too, I remember my first time I went to visit you, I stayed up with your mom for 4 hours. I think it was like 3 something in the morning. Just her and I just chatting. And I think that's what helped us to realize, or her and myself, it's like, wow, this is possible. This is nice. We have things in common. It's not just the culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you said. What did you say last? Shoot, I forget things.
Like,
What did you say?
just, I think it's partly a cultural thing that we don't tend to just trust people.
Oh yes, that's what it was.
We tend to be suspicious, I think, in a way. Not totally suspicious, but just a little more reserved with people that we don't know.
Interesting, right? And the thing is, also how connected your family was. That's what that made me think of, because for my family is like one problem. If a person has a problem, is everybody's problem. Like my brother was going through stuff, we were all in it. My dad, my mom, anybody's like, okay, how are we all helping out that situation? Where I'm realizing with your family, it's a different dynamic of culture, which I respect. It's more like, well, you owe me this, you need to give me this, or good luck to you, I'll be praying for you. It's more individualized mentality, and that is still kind of hard for me.
America is hugely individualistic, and and very focused on like what's fair, what give and take.
Laws, how it should be,
give and take, what's owed, what's expected, what your duty is, what your responsibility is, all of that.
There's so much we want to share. There's a lot that we even didn't share in this podcast because it is getting too long, and we love chatting, so that's okay. But we don't want to make you bored or anything out of our podcast. So because we want to make sure that you stay tuned, we're going to save the rest for the next podcast. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in this first episode of Through This Life.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing you or talking to you again next time. And I think our next topic is going to be cancer.
Yeah,
how we've been dealing with that. So
yeah, it's been a crazy roller coaster, and we wanna make sure you hear it out. So stay tuned for that one.
You're not gonna want to miss it.
Yeah. Oh, mercy. God is good. God is
Amen.
good. Alrighty. Blessings to y'all. Bye bye.
Blessings.